So I was bringing my clothes down to the laundry room the other day. And by the way, we never realized it, but we count ourselves lucky for having one in the building, since from what I heard, a lot of the people here in New York don't have such luxury and have to rely on laundry shop on the corner, which is fine, except for the fact that most of them had closed due to the lockdown here in New York City. And instead, people had to rely on friends and family just to find a place to do their laundry, which isn't easy since we all have to technically maintain social distancing. But it's either that or try to do it by hand. Not a pleasant thought. Anyhow, since the start of the lockdown, the foot traffic in my apartment building had fell to the point where it's now pretty common for us to leave and come back to our home and not bump into a single person either in the lobby or at the elevator. So I was slightly surprised when the elevator stopped on the 4th floor. The door opened and 2 fully suited EMT workers appears behind it. They stared right at me and my laundry basket and said, "Sir, we need you to step out of the elevator." And that is when I noticed the gurney behind them, which had an older gentleman on it who was wearing a mask. They stepped aside to let me pass, and I held my laundry basket tight to my chest and right in front of me, almost like a shield, as I stepped around them and the gurney. And as soon as I was out of the way, they rushed right into the elevator and was gone. And I was left in that empty hallway with my laundry basket. It is Saturday, April 11, 2020, and week 4 of the soft lockdown here in New York City. And for the very first time, we're starting to see some light at the end of this long and very dark tunnel that we have been stuck in. We now have 94,000 confirmed cases, and 5,400 New Yorkers have lost their life so far. But for the first time, we're seeing a leveling in the newly hospitalization rate, which is certainly a positive sign. But unfortunately, for the time being, the number of deaths is continuing to climb, since the critical cases that had checked into the hospital system 2 weeks ago are starting to run out of time. By the way, I'm riding my Godway Monster uptown on 1st Avenue today, since someone had asked to see some other parts of New York City that I don't typically go through on my vlog. And it's been super helpful to have the electric unicycle now that spring has finally starting to arrive with the warmer and nicer weather, and with everyone cooped up in their home during the week. Everyone is desperate to be out. Path had been pretty busy on weekends, but having a much faster wheels and a lot less cars on the roads means that I can pretty much stay in the center lane and still maintain social distancing. So now that we have some sign of the virus finally ramping up, for the first time there's actually some discussion of how we can all get back to work. Likely a good thing, since I was laid off 2 weeks ago, and attempting to find a new job in this climate has been, shall we say, challenging, since most businesses are still operating under disaster mode given the level of uncertainty everyone had. And there are a lot of suggestions as to what reopening can look like, such as wide-range testing, including a new antibody test that can identify those people who have gone and recovered from the virus and is theoretically immune. There's also news of amazingly enough, Google and Apple co-developing an API that will enable ubiquitous contact tracing through mobile phone, both on the Android and the iOS platform. But the one caveat common to all of these suggestions are that, like the vaccine, they're all at least several weeks, if not months away. So it really looks like things aren't going to dramatically change for the short term. So one of my friends asked me what it is that I miss the most about my pre-pandemic free living life. And surprisingly, the first thing that came to mind was ramen. Not just any ramen, But Minka, one of my favorite ramen shops, which happened to be a few blocks away from where I live. It's a tiny hole-in-the-wall of a place serving Japanese Kyushu style ramen, which is well known for its rich pork bone broth, a soup that is so thick and hearty that when you drink it, it feels like you're biting into a juicy piece of pork chop. And Minka, which has been open long enough so as to predate the recent New York ramen craze and all the competition that has sprung up in the neighborhood as a result, in my opinion, serve one of the best bowl of Kyushu style ramen that you can possibly find anywhere in the world. And being a bit of a ramen nerd, I have had ramen from basically around the world. And I have also traveled to Kyushu and had the ramen there from the city that has been widely considered to be one of the origin of the modern ramen. And to a certain extent, it's not just about the food. Minka is tiny, which means that we often have to endure long waits, especially on popular nights. And even once you get in, you still have to cram elbow to elbow to sit at the bar with the other patrons just so that you can wait for your ramen to come. As a matter of fact, it's so small that in the winter, it's hard to even find the room to stretch just to take off your coat. But there's just something beautiful about the whole experience. It is located in the East Village. You get a pretty eclectic mix of customers. You get the tattoo artist with elaborate drawings of mythical Japanese deities peeking out from underneath his t-shirts, sitting next to a Wall Street looking suit who had to loosen his tie just so that he can raise the ramen bowl high and slurp down its delicious broth. And of course, there's also the ritualized dance of ramen preparations, synchronized between chef and his assistant, who have perfected their technique over the years, and thousands of bowls of piping hot, delicious ramen. It is hot, loud, crowded, delicious, and despite the fact that I have visited numerous times, it's a combination that I can never get tired of. And yes, they do offer takeout, but somehow it just doesn't quite feel the same as actually eating there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Since few had asked, I started a Patreon page, link in the description below. If you'd like to support my work and make a few donations, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. Until the next week.